Hello.
Hi,
Top
Alex.
of the morning to you. If you're on the West Coast. Top of the noontime to you. If you're on the East Coast. It's St. Patrick's Day.
Is
And
it?
we decided to celebrate it in a very somber fashion because it is a holy day in the Catholic calendar. So I wanted to be as respectful as possible to all of our Irish friends in the audience. Hey, let's get the flick out of here. And I'm your host, Alex Pulaski. With me, as always, is Kate. Kate decided to not be fun today.
I didn't have time to go out and buy all the Irish stuff. I think I let you down on New Year's too. I gotta get it together.
I'm pretty sure, like Party City, you can like Postmates it. Like, come on, let's.
It's true.
Let's come on. That's a legitimate response.
Your last name is literally Sullivan. You should be trying to match this.
Why are you not? You better be drinking a green beer as we speak. That's all. Or
Shamrock Shake.
Right. Well, you want one of these?
Huh?
Yeah.
You did the thing.
I grabbed one of these on my way out to pick up my daughter from school yesterday, and then I put it in the freezer, and now it is rock solid. And I do not know if I will be able to enjoy my Shamrock Shake during this Irish episode. So,
my God,
Kate.
Yes.
We each watched Leprechaun movies.
We sure did, pal.
You watched 1, and I watched 6.
Self-inflicted.
I had never seen. Well, let's talk about yours first, just real quickly. It is called A Very Unlucky Leprechaun. It's a kids' movie about a family that moves to Ireland, and there's a leprechaun that lives on their property, and he's very unlucky. Okay, simple, right? But now, separate from that, there happens to be a horror movie franchise of which I've seen none. I'd never seen any of the Leprechaun horror movies, but I knew they. Excuse me. I got a 4-leaf clover stuck in my throat.
I was going to say all that dairy from your Shamrock Shake catching up with you.
Yeah, it could be. I knew they had made a series of Leprechaun horror movies, and I was like, "Hey, that'll be fun. I'll watch one of them." And I looked at them like, all of them are available on Peacock, which I already have a subscription to because of WWE stuff that I don't like. So why not watch all of them? I mean, I'll start early enough in the week. I'll watch 1, maybe 1.5 a day, and I'll get there in time. And I did. I was able to get through all 6, finishing up the last one, Leprechaun Back to the Hood. I finished up that one yesterday. The 6 movies are Leprechaun 2, Leprechaun 3, Leprechaun 4 in Space, Leprechaun in the Hood, and Leprechaun Back to the Hood. The 2 is a numeral 2, and the is spelled THA apostrophe. So it's authentically black. And it is it's none of these. I thought they would be sequels, Kate. And I talked with you about this. I thought they would be sequels. They are not sequels.
No, in fact, they had nothing to do with each other, I'm told.
I mean, I found a through line by the end, but it was very loose. And certainly, some of the later ones try to connect it back to the earlier ones. But let's be honest, when you're doing Leprechaun 4 in Space, you're not really connecting it to anything. So it's not just called Leprechaun in Space, which it could be called Leprechaun in Space, but it's called Leprechaun 4 in Space. And I'm like, whatever. So yeah, I did this to myself.
You did, and we don't get paid by the movie that you watch.
No,
we get paid per episode, so it's not like a.
No. No, like and the dollar amount per hour that I get paid to do this drastically goes down when I spend my evenings watching, terrible horror movies when I shouldn't be. Oh, I gotta get this off. It's a nice, tasteful bow tie. So, just didn't want to wear that all day. It's very hard on the face. I thought I would wear these instead. So that's good. See, it's nice there.
I messaged Alex before we went on, and I said I let you down. Like I had no Irish stuff. I don't even have a green shirt. I was so disappointed in myself. And you said, "Don't worry, I'll bring the average up." I did not realize to what extent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty.
It's good.
You're so fancy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I got the bow tie. Okay. All right. So
I feel like I should start because you have 6.
I do feel like you should start. The thing that also connects them is is that the same actor, Warwick Davis, who a lot of people of my generation will remember as Willow in the wonderful, though critically panned, erroneously critically panned, fantasy movie Willow, written and directed by George Lucas. Written by George Lucas, directed by Ron Howard, also starring Val Kilmer in his most Val Kilmer-y. It's a fantastic little fantasy piece, especially for younger kids. But it's really great. Holds up. I watched it last year. It's great. Also, he played Wicket in all the Ewok movies. The little Ewok, the most famous Ewok. And then Warwick Davis played both Leprechauns. Played the Leprechaun in all of these horror movies I'm going to talk about, and also played the Leprechaun in the Family movie. And as far as I could tell from watching about 20 minutes of your movie last night before I went to bed, the only real difference is that he wears like horror movie makeup. Like, I'm sure I think it's actually the same costume. They were just like, hey, can we borrow the costume you had him in from before? Because we don't want to make a new one. And he has the same voice. So I thought that was very interesting. And that's kind of why we're doing this, because I wanted to see how one actor plays two, I thought, radically different leprechauns.
Alex.
Mm-hmm.
Alex.
Yeah.
Before we dive in.
Yeah.
A while ago, we had said, I believe it was after the Freddie Prinze Jr., Amy Garcia vehicle.
Right.
That I'm not allowed to pick anymore. And I was the one that volunteered it. I was like, I'm not allowed to pick anymore.
Right.
This was actually too bad. After watching this, I feel like it's an even playing field.
Well, listen,
yours was at least themed, but my God.
You could have watched some scary Leprechaun movies, but apparently
Alex. You
don't have the Constitution. So.
I can barely watch your Red Dead Redemption streams and be like, oh my God, these pixels are shooting these other pixels. Yeah. There are things that are laughably insane about it, as one would expect, but it's mostly a waste of time. We'll dive in. It opens with just some extremely generic B-roll of Ireland, and it's not even good B-roll. Like, it came out in 1998, and I thought I was like, this is for sure 1990. It's important to me that it came out in 1998, and we're going to talk about why in a moment. But it opens with this B-roll, and you see a car driving through the countryside with Molly, a 10-year-old little girl, and her dad, who, crucially, this is so important to me because I love The West Wing. The dad is played by the same actor, I can't remember his name, who plays Senator Hoynes in The West Wing. I think it was Senator
Tim Matheson.
Great actor. Actually, pretty good in this, considering what he was given. The West Wing started in 1999. This movie came out in 1998. The jump he took from 1998 to 1999, I can't. We learn extremely early, like within probably 5 lines of dialogue, Molly, who I'm not gonna like sit here and critically judge a 10-year-old girl.
I'll do it.
Not a great actor, not a great child actor.
No.
Also, you know, this is quite a role. You're playing opposite a leprechaun.
Yeah.
Not great. But we find out very early that she's unhappy. She wants to know why they're moving to Ireland, and her dad says, "We've been through this." And we learn immediately and pretty abruptly. He recaps the situation, which sets up basically the entire movie, that his brother, her uncle Sean, died and left them this house in Ireland, and the bank foreclosed on their house in Chicago. And he's a failed author. He says that this next book is destined to be a surefire bestseller. It's called Fun with Floor Tiles, and Molly immediately knows it's a flop. He's a how-to author, and he has not been successful. The name of where their home is Green Glen, because they just had no imagination. And I don't know, maybe 10 minutes in, that car hits something. And because he's a good man, he doesn't just keep going, pulls over. He's like, "Oh my God, what did I just hit?" And she's kind of, Molly's in there like, "I don't know." He was like, "It was too fast to see." He hit the leprechaun. I mean, within the first 10 minutes of the movie.
No, I watched. He didn't hit the leprechaun. The leprechaun scattered across the street. He missed the leprechaun. He stopped short. The leprechaun hit the sign, and that was what the sound was. He didn't know about it, but like
Okay,
that.
so the thought came after.
I'm not quibbling, but like, it is very funny that we'll talk more in my review about the magic of the leprechaun and how arbitrary it is. In this one, our leprechauns run very fast.
Extreme.
That is,
well,
they run very, very fast.
In theory, when they're actually running around, it's more of like a little hippity hop type run.
Right, right. Well, they have the ability, as we see in the beginning of this, of him just flitting through the trees. They have ability to like turn on flash speed and go
turbo mode of some sort.
Yeah.
Dad is looking in the forest where they pulled over for whatever it was, which is weird because if you thought you hit something, I don't know why you would go look in like the forest.
Right.
But it turns out Molly's told to stay in the car. She does not stay in the car.
No.
She's a little mischief, this Molly.
Mm-hmm.
But there is an or like a formerly planted in the ground, but no longer planted in the ground, a sign on its side that says, "Slow down, Leprechauns crossing," which of course looks like a playful novelty sign.
Right.
And he says, "See, if they had read my book, they would have known to put this sign in cement." That's kind of ridiculous. Molly sees the leprechaun, but there's not like a full interaction. She just sees that he's kind of like behind the trees. And they arrive at Fortune Manor, or Misfortune Manor.
Bum.
There is an older man who's been tending the manor. Not really tending the manor, is just there to open the house. He says that the house is cursed and that everybody who was there died young.
He also has maybe the third most Irish name I've ever heard in Patrick Mulligan.
Patrick Mulligan.
Mulligan at your service.
Mulligan, you're going to hear Connor. It's a very on the nose.
Irish.
McGreedy is the name of the mayor. We're going to get there. But he says everybody died young. And the dad says, but he was 94 when he died. And Mulligan says, in the prime of his life.
In the prime of his life, he was.
And they go out to the garden. The manor is in complete disrepair. There's cobwebs everywhere. It's a disaster. It's going to take a lot of fixing up. But there's a pest in the garden eating roses, and we find out that it's not a pest, Alex. These are not insects.
No.
It's a leprechaun. And
Indeed.
he's eating roses, but what he's searching for is a 4-leaf clover.
Okay, this is a very important point that we'll get back to later, where I think as a society, we should all come together and agree. Like, I don't know if we have to have hearings on this, international hearings, but 4-leaf clovers, what do they do to leprechauns? Because in my leprechaun movies, they kill leprechauns. And in your leprechaun movies, if he eats one, he'll have good luck for 100 years.
Have good luck for 100 years. It's the key to getting to Leprechaun Land, where all of his leprechaun homies are. And yeah, it's the opposite of your movie. It's the ball game, man.
Let's come to an accord. Let's figure it out. One or the other, you know?
Maybe it's an in Ireland thing. Like, in Ireland, they're good luck, but if you find them in space, it's not good.
Maybe.
I don't know. We need clarity around the rules.
Mm-hmm, we do.
So the leprechaun, of course, lives in the wishing well, as one would expect. Yeah. And Molly makes a wish. She wishes to go home. Throws a penny down there. Her dad says, let's not get in the habit of throwing money away, which is about as clever as the movie gets. We find out that her mom is dead here. They do justify Molly's future behavior in this by saying that she's had like this overactive imagination since her mom died. Like, he thinks it's a coping mechanism of some sort.
Right.
So I appreciate that they at least tried to justify it. And again, he's like a pretty good actor. He's just been given crap, but like, he reads this part pretty well. Like, it comes across as well as this can. But next we kind of see Mayor McGreedy show up. He is the mayor of the town. He is one of 8 people in the town, according to this like whole movie. We don't really see anybody else in the entire town.
Now, here's the thing. I'm pretty sure it's Mayor McGreedy. But the way that this guy says it, it's Mayor McGreedy, which of course is who he is. He's an incredibly greedy person who wants to take over. Yeah.
And we know that because he's there to collect property tax on the house, because he was going to foreclose on that house. So he doesn't even send anybody else. He's the guy that shows up to do it.
See, I think you're, as a mayor, you're well within your rights to say, hey, by the way, the guy you inherited this from, he was delinquent in his taxes. We'll have to work something out so that you can pay his back taxes. I was about to foreclose on his house when he died. So we're going to figure something out. That might be a little insensitive. You know, uncle just died or whatever, but I feel like that's okay. However, then he admits to this man he just met, I'm going to foreclose on all the houses, and I'm going to level everything. I don't want to see any green except for in my wallet. I'm like, okay, well, now you've lost me. Now it's no longer just you being a fastidious mayor. Now it's you, like, being straight up child's movie villain. And, of course, that's, I'm assuming, what he is.
That is what he is. We see them, it's so important to me that they establish the amount that they're in debt is 13,000 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
It comes into play later because the bailout money is not that much money, but
right.
Crucially to me, they're 13,000 pounds in debt. He says, you know, that's basically all of his savings. He can afford to pay off about $1,000 or $2,000 right now.
Right. And he says that he's delinquent 3,000. So that is due today. He said, well, that's basically all my savings. So the extra 10,000 pounds. I mean, where's he going to get that from? There you go.
So shortly after we see Molly go to school, she's being bullied by 2 kids, and darn it, wouldn't you know it? It's the McGreedy's kids.
Yeah, of course.
They try to steal her lunch, and she does the right thing to go tell the principal. But the principal reveals to Molly immediately, on presumably like her first day of school, that those McGreedy boys are good boys, and that she is like a mother to them because their mom died. I would say as many deaths in this as there are in your typical Hallmark movie. So that was nice. Made me feel like I was watching kind of like my sweet spot of bad movie. And that she's dating their dad, the mayor, and she just kind of willingly tells a 10-year-old this very quickly. And later we find out that they're kind of dating in secret. So I don't know, maybe don't tell a 10-year-old student on her first day when she's coming to you to discipline two punk-ass kids that you're dating the dad, who's the mayor of the town. But because Molly is the one causing all this chaos, she has the perfect punishment for her, which is to clean the bathroom floors with a toothbrush. What? So Molly comes home.
See, the bad guys in kids movies are evil just for the sake of being evil, and it's always like this is how we start to think about. We tell kids, all right, there are good people and bad people, and no one in between, and the bad people are bad because they like to be bad. And so this is what kids learn when they were like, no, there's lots of shades of gray. You know what I mean?
And pretty much all of them are in authority positions.
He's like, there are heels in this world, and there are baby faces. 95% of the people you meet are tweeners.
Exactly, and it's just a matter of how they're booked that day. That's all.
That's right.
So Molly comes home. She's sniffing around for her little leprechaun friend. He's hiding in like the bowels of this property in a refrigerator. I don't know why. He's like in the fridge, like a discarded fridge outside, it looked like, or some other white cabinet of some sort, but he's hiding in there. And she literally bags him like with a sack, and she captures him. They have a little bit of a conversation. He convinces her to let her out of the bag and establishes here that leprechauns can't lie. So she lets him out, but she's smart enough to.
That's also very different from the leprechaun that I dealt with in my movies.
Oh, really? Okay.
Tells a lot of lies. Yeah.
A lot of leprechaun rules. One is that they can't lie.
I believe in the first movie, one of the first things they say is, "Don't you know you can't trust a leprechaun?"
Did they make these like in contrast of each other?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. Seems like they did it on purpose.
This actor he wanted a moment to redeem himself, so they made this movie. He was like, I was told that Leprechauns on Ice was going to be my big redemption arc, but they never made it.
That's right.
So she, like a little mob boss, binds him to her ankle and says, "Bring me to the pot of gold."
Wow.
He does so, but it's not really a pot of gold because there's no luck in the world. So, this is where it gets very chaotic. He unbinds himself while she's like distracted by the pot of gold. He undoes their ankles and like in a mischievous way tries to get away from her. But because they're in this like buried part of the property, he like escapes and is kicking rocks back like boulders because this is like a little bit of a dugout hole. And Molly is like kind of chasing him up this ramp a little bit and she falls down. He just runs away. She's laying on the ground, concussed. And he's just like, ha 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 ha, and walks off. This is where we meet Sharon Connors. There is no establishment of who she really is, except she's the one that finds Molly and makes sure she's okay. He comes into the house. You would think there would be more context. I don't know if I like just missed it or whatever, but she basically comes into the house and connects with Howard, the dad. And she looks around and she says, "Oh man, look, this house has so much potential." We find out she is an interior designer who has read all of his how-to books, to which he says, "So you're the one." And she's like, "Oh my God, I think your books are great."
So this is, I mean, I'm asking for a spoiler. This is Molly's new mommy by the end of the movie.
This is close. They're together. This is the love interest.
But you know, like that's they've set that up, implied that a few months from now that's going to be true, kind of a thing.
Okay, if we're getting into spoiler territory, she has a psychic vision about it. Don't worry about it. We're gonna get there. Okay, her concussion gave her basically a psychic vision. So, but here she says, I would dress up this house. It has so much potential if you let me show it as like an example of my work, which seems like a way too generous trade-off because this house is in complete disrepair. And he, of course, agrees to it because he's not an idiot. And they're essentially like early flirtations, basically in love.
Sure.
And then the rest of the movie doesn't matter for like 40 minutes, but I'll walk you through some of it anyway. The leprechaun appears in Molly's room. The leprechaun has a handbook, and he has to follow all these things to land at the other end of the rainbow, which is Leprechaun Land. The sack that Molly tried to catch the leprechaun in was his, and is a lucky sack that he can pull all sorts of lucky things out of. He lets her maim herself trying to catch him. She's like getting this tutorial on how to catch a leprechaun. And he's like, okay, catch me at the count of 3. And then he would move on 2. And she would fall down. And then he would be like, she's like, oh, I should start earlier. I should start at 1. And then he would like disappear. Like, just, he's not great. Like, he just keeps letting her physically injure herself.
This is the scene that I fast forwarded to just so I could see Warwick Davis playing this version of Leprechaun and see what it was like. I just like scanned through the thing and I come to this. I have a question about this whole thing. Now, I missed the scene where he said leprechauns aren't allowed to lie. But just being outright duplicitous is totally fine. Like, catch me on the count of 3. 1, 2, and then she dives at him at 3, and he leaves. Like, see, you should have started. You should have tried to jump at me at 2.
Yes.
But then that's not at the count of 3. That's like,
which would be a lie.
Like, I want you to be dishonest with me in order to catch me. It's a very odd, weird kink. Like, I don't know. It's just, yeah.
It's also just, she doesn't just like not catch him. She falls down every time.
Yeah.
And this is supposed to be like her pal. Like, she's like, I can't lie, but I can trick you constantly and lead you to injure yourself. It's just, it's a very, very odd thing.
Yeah, mixed messages.
So they're at recess the next day. Nobody can see the leprechaun except for her, because in order to see the leprechaun, you have to have the imagination. And I guess none of the other kids have an imagination at her age.
No.
But they're sitting there having a picnic. So she just looks like she's talking to her lunch, which I feel like somebody should have had concern for her psychological state. Like, her dad is definitely in tune with the fact that she is off, but like, she should be seeing a psychologist at some point here.
That's true.
But he has the lucky sack with him. He's pulling horseshoes out of it, lucky 7s, rabbit's foot. She says she needs salt for her lunch, and he pulls salt out of the bag, and she goes to put it on her lunch, and he says, that's lucky salt. You're wasting it. You need to throw it over your shoulder. In doing so, she hits one of the McReadys who have come to bully her because she's talking to her lunch, and a food fight breaks out. And of course, who gets blamed? But Miss Molly, because it was her lunch. We then move along to his hideout, which is basically in a castle. There's all these other things like a lucky starfish, which I don't understand how. I don't think, is that like a lucky thing?
I don't know. I because a lucky star, you know, like, hey, thank your lucky stars or whatever, right? So they like try to do like something cute, I think, with like, hey, it's a lucky starfish, and it's really hideous looking. Says, oh, the extra leg is what gives it look, and it looks horrible.
And it has like, it looks like on, If you would watch Conan O'Brien, how they'd have like the static image and the moving mouth.
Yes.
That's basically what this is. They make another Lucky Star reference later, so I don't know why this happens, but
I don't know.
It doesn't really lead to anything.
No.
She is chasing the leprechaun through a construction site. McGreedy, because he has no sense of a job outside of micromanaging people in the town, I guess, is near the construction site, and he falls in the cement. Angry McGreedy, the construction guys love it. His face falls right in the cement, and it's a laugh riot to them.
So good.
They get taken back home. Molly's just constantly in mischief here. Right. So what kind of luck are we really having? McGreedy brings her home, insists that she'd be in trouble. She's not really in trouble because of everything she's been through. But the interior designer, Sharon Connor, is there. And my God, what a job she's done with the house. Howard asks her to stay for dinner, to talk about business and the rest of the plans in the house.
Sure.
Of course.
Business. Sexy business.
Up in her room, this whole movie is just nonsense. Up in her room, also in his lucky sack, he gives her a star. It's a lucky star, Alex. Mm-hmm. But my God, if it's not a lucky star and it's actually a shooting star, just causing mayhem.
Just bounces all over the room?
It just bounces all over the house.
Oh my goodness. That's not good.
It. No. That's it. They're like running around the house, causing all this destruction, and the dad comes up and is like, what the hell is happening? And she's like, oh, this leprechaun,
Mm-hmm.
He gave me a shooting star. The star's shooting around the house. It's causing all this destruction. It broke the window.
Now, the first time that she ever says the word leprechaun, she adds an extra vowel to it. Does she do that for the entire film? Because the first time she says, Dad, it was a leprechaun. And I was like, do you think that the U is the part, like you got to pronounce the U? Leprechaun. And I was
like the little kid who said corn, like the kid that went viral and was like, cone. She doesn't do it the whole movie, and not that I picked up on.
Oh, well, that's good. I appreciate that.
It's so funny. So her dad's reaction is to remove all of the imaginative books out of her room. He thinks that these fairy tales are what's causing all of this mayhem.
That's what it's got to be.
I'm going to say it feels like an underreaction. If you... If your kid is talking to herself at lunch and just racing around your property. So he also really dramatically says, like, there's not leprechauns, understood. But Dad, understood. And then he goes, I'm glad one of us does. Because he just doesn't know how to communicate with his, at this point, should seem like mentally ill daughter.
Right.
We move to Mulligan explaining to Molly, whose life is in shambles at this point, that she's not the one that's out of luck. The leprechaun's the one that's out of luck because he hasn't found a 4-leaf clover in 100 years.
Right.
Very different than your universe, as you pointed out. And so Molly tries to play a trick on the leprechaun. They're in like the wooded area behind their house. And she says she found a 4-leaf clover. And the leprechaun says, oh, I've been looking for one of those all night. And she says, from my understanding, you've been looking for one a lot longer than all night. Then for some reason, this is what gets real weird. It was weird the whole time, but it really goes up a notch here. He's basically like, let's talk about it over dinner. And he just like waves a magic hand and a butler appears. And is like, dinner? And he's like, yes. And then he waves it again, and it feels like a romantically set table appears, which gets weirder in the next scene, which is what the scene that I DM'd you about when I was watching this. They're sitting over this, what feels like a romantic dinner, and she says 4-leaf clovers don't exist. This is actually a 3-leaf clover with a tear in it. What are you even talking about? And she kind of has a breakdown. She's like, my mess is a life because of you. You said you bring me luck, and you haven't. I've only had all this bad luck. And he was like, well, I said I'd bring you luck. I didn't say it was good luck, which is a fair point. But feels like a cop-out in the I don't really lie thing.
Yeah.
And then we find out about what feels like the most I went out of the way for this plot piece of this. There apparently is a go-kart race in Ireland, and the prize is 9,000 pounds. If he's 13,000 in debt, it can pay 3,000 off.
Then there's still 1,000 pounds. Yeah, you still need 1,000 pounds. Also, if he uses his entire savings to pay off the 3,000, even if it was 10,000 pounds, the prize, then that's left him with a house and nothing.
No dollars. But it's okay because he has this book.
Couldn't it be like a 25,000 pound thing that we could, like, you know, not super rich, but just, hey, we get 15,000 pounds in the bank, we'll be okay.
You would think some sort of cushion might have been built into the price.
Yeah, that might be nice, but no.
Oh man. So it's a race for the riches. They're talking about how to switch up their luck as a duo here, and they try to grow a 4-leaf clover. They grow best in the moonlight. So Molly's idea is to put it next to the window at night, and to speed up, according to legend, the growth of a 4-leaf clover, you can play music. This is why the romantic dinner part feels weird, because the next move is, instead of the leprechaun playing music to speed up the growth, he just kind of mysteriously has music playing into a flute and dances with her. Mm-hmm. Feels benign in the moment. But the next thing that happens is, after they're all tuckered out from dancing, they lay down in bed together. Alone, all of these things feel pretty benign, but a dinner and dancing and then laying in bed sequence, not great. Not great. Would not get made now.
No.
But they're trying to figure out how to enter this race. That's going to be the way that she wins the money for her dad. There's just a go-kart laying in the backyard. Out of complete convenience. It's rusted. It's a piece of junk. But there just happens to be a go-kart in the backyard.
But that just, that just shows to Goya that go-karts are so ubiquitous in Ireland, like, you can't walk through your backyard without tripping over one, right? They're just everywhere. Famously, go-karts are Irish. That's why all Mario Kart tracks take place in Ireland.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
Just laying out by the shed.
That's true.
I can't emphasize enough how insane what happens next is.
Oh, good.
Howard and Sharon are inside flirting. She read his book. She says it's not as good as your other books, and he says, I was afraid you'd say that. And she says, it's better. And he's like, oh my God. And they're having an in-depth discussion about the criticism of it. And Molly comes in, vying for her dance.
You're the perfect woman. A woman who thinks my writing is good. Therefore, we should get married.
She does add value later in the movie that is unbelievably, it's incredible. But Molly comes in and is vying for her dad's attention and says, hey, I want to put a motor in a go-kart. And his reaction isn't, what the hell are you doing, 10-year-old child who's getting into automotive work? Right. He says, oh, I have just the book for that. I wrote that. how to put a motor in your go-kart book.
Mm-hmm.
Here it is. Go play. Fucking what? He's just blowing her off to flirt with Sharon on this too.
Oh, sure. Listen, it's probably been a long time for old Tim Matheson. Old Senator Hoynes. He's got the itch. You know what I mean? So
I guess.
Mm.
At no point does he seem like overly concerned that his daughter is chasing a leprechaun through the world and building go-karts. Like, she just goes off for periods of this movie with this leprechaun. And
weird.
It's so insane. So she, of course, we get like a fantastic montage of her building out the go-kart. The McGreedy boys run into her in town, and they steal her pocket watch as a distraction to cut the wires in her go-kart, because famously the McGreedy boys, this is a kids go-kart race, have won every year, and they don't want the competition. But the car was still on, so she starts driving and goes careening through town. She's able to steer back home, and doesn't really like crash into anything, but kind of idles into their garage. This is the first time he's concerned about his daughter's well-being in the entire film. And they decide to rebuild the go-kart after this conversation with Sharon, who points out, I don't know, you've been spending a lot of time with me and cleaning up your house. He's like, I don't know how to communicate with my daughter. And she basically says, have you tried spending any time with her in this film? Have you tried not ignoring her constantly? I don't know. Maybe her imagination wouldn't run amok if she had a father figure who was tending to her at any point. And I can't emphasize enough, he has a written book. It's not like he's so busy at work in this. So he decides he's going to help her rebuild the go-kart and be a father, it turns out. This leads up to the big race. On her windowsill, we have a plant with 3 leaves that have grown, not 4, but they get ready for the race. It's called Rainbow Racer. Her and Sharon painted this car for her as a goodwill thing. And so they go to the race. And the McGreedy boys are just blowing by everybody. They take the turbo off of her, the back of her car, and she can't really drive anymore. She's not going fast enough. So the leprechaun helps her car fly. It flies and lands right near the end of the race, where she pulls ahead of the McGreedys to win. They're just about to award her all this money when the principal, who gets rejected by Mayor McGreedy, says, we didn't see her car at that checkpoint, at whatever the name of the checkpoint was. She must have cheated. She's disqualified. And so the money gets awarded, of course, to the McGreedy boys. She's
who desperately need it. They desperately need it.
Who desperately need it, of course.
Yeah.
Molly's upset. She's fed up. She doesn't want to hang out with this leprechaun anymore. She tells him off. She's like, you've essentially ruined my life. To which I say, good for you, Molly. You have a point. So there's like so many things being foreclosed on in this movie. Their Chicago house gets foreclosed on. This house is about to get foreclosed on. This is almost the ending here. It's absolutely bonkers. The 4th leaf has sprung on the plant. Okay.
Oh, good.
They have the wrecking ball out to tear down the house. Molly runs back into the house to get her 4-leaf clover plant out of it. Sharon dramatically pleads for them to stop the wrecking ball, and the construction crew is like, we can't hear you. What? As does her father. The wrecking ball smashes through the front window. The next thing we see is Molly in bed in that house. Her dad is reading to her. A story about a girl who went into a deep sleep. And he's reading this book where most fairy tales are written to put you to sleep, but this one was written to wake her up. And my God, if she doesn't wake up. She dreamed this whole thing except for the part where she fell down earlier and like concussed herself. She's been in bed for 4 days, and this has been not the dream she's having. This has been a vision that she was having. But now she knows everything that's about to happen, so she can manipulate the situation. In the last 10 minutes of the movie, they're talking about the financial situation, which was real. And she's like, I know exactly how we're going to win. I'm going to do the race. We're going to win. And it's going to be great. Oh, I'm sorry. There was one really other important part. In the dream sequence, he gets a letter handed to him. And he's like, maybe it's an advance on my book. And it's a rejection from the publisher. So he has no money coming in. Molly says, I know how we're going to get this money. And he explains that the story that he was reading to her is a story he wrote while she was in this deep sleep. We see the next scene is basically a replay of the wrecking ball scene, but they're not in the house. And the letter that he gets is, again, a rejection of Fun with Floor Tiles. But it's an advance on the story that he was reading to Molly. And they want him to write a children's book instead because that was much more compelling. But Alex, he never submitted that story.
No.
How did he get the money? Well, wouldn't you know it? The very leprechaun who was told off by Molly submitted this story. My God. And so seconds before the wrecking ball is about to wreck the house, he has the check in the hand. He hands it to Mayor McGreedy. Everything is saved. And then basically the go home is she says to the leprechaun who's getting ready to hit town. He's going to Leprechaun Land. He's lucky now. The 4-leaf clover exists. He's good to go. She says, I didn't have a chance to thank you yet. And he said, what did you wish for when you threw the penny down the well? And she said, I wish to go home. Or she said, you didn't give me money. You gave me a family. And he says, you wish to go home. And now she is home. The pot of gold from earlier, Mulligan gets, which I love. Old man comes back. He can see the leprechaun because he's got an imagination.
Right.
And the last shot of this is Molly talking to Howard. And Howard says, the publisher says the end of the book needs something. What do you think that is? And you hear the voice of the leprechaun, who is now in Leprechaun Land, say, how about a rainbow to Molly? And Molly says, how about a rainbow? And he's like the one over your house. And they turn around and there's a big rainbow. And that's the end of the movie. I think she's schizophrenic.
Possible. I mean, the head injury might have done it.
When I tell you 40 minutes of this movie was the filler, and this last 10 minutes is where everything kind of comes together.
Right. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm
you
sorry. I'm sorry. Listen, I think the convention that has been agreed upon is when circumstances dictate that I must watch a scary movie, you have to watch a kids movie instead. I think that's the problem, is that's
come on.
But like what other Irish leprechaun movie would there be for you to watch instead?
I don't know.
Okay.
Could it be just a movie that takes place in Ireland?
No, listen, what are you gonna watch? The Commitments? Listen, like it says, it can't be. It's got to be also wacky and crazy. Like it can't be just like, oh hey, this movie is set in Ireland. Like that can't. It's got to be wacky and crazy. I don't know. I feel bad.
You should.
But also, I mean, they really weren't that scary. The movies really weren't that scary. You could have totally watched those movies.
Oh, come on!
mean,
You watched
I
6 of them, and at no point were you like, "Hey, Kate, you could probably handle this."
I mean, listen, no, because the thing is that I don't honestly think you could handle it because you are famously a wuss. So I don't know, you know. So okay, so the Leprechaun movies. The first movie, famously, is the first film acted in by Jennifer Aniston. The movie came out in 1993. Friends started in 1995. Okay.
So both of our movies have huge leaps up for 2 of the actors involved.
Right, I would say. But here's the thing with that, like the everyone's like, you know, Jennifer Aniston was on Friends for a long time, and she, you know, has branched out into films and whatnot. But a lot of the critique of her acting post Friends is like, I'm just watching Rachel. She's got a lot of the same mannerisms and stuff, you know, as everything. Like, well, you know, I mean, she played Rachel for like, I don't know, 8 years, hundreds and hundreds of episodes.
But she did like that one thriller with, who was it? Ashton Kutcher, some like the butterfly thing, and she did. Everybody loved her in Horrible Bosses when she played like that psychotic.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So she has it in her to not do that. But a lot of the criticism that I've seen of her in a lot of her standard type of thing, right? So is that it reeks of Rachel.
Sure.
And my whole thing has been, well, you really can't hold that against her. She kind of developed all of these habits from playing the same character for so long, so many times. And I'm here to tell you that's just Jennifer Aniston. That's just who she is, because it was just like watching young Rachel in this movie. It was just, she didn't have the haircut yet, but that's about it. She is from LA, Beverly Hills, and they never say why, but she has come to live with her father, who we must understand is estranged from her mother, in North Dakota or South Dakota. I don't remember. It's one of the Dakotas. And she hates it there because there's nothing to do, and it's not Beverly Hills, and she's a spoiled brat, and we're supposed to not like her. And she does a great job being unlikable. They are moving into a house nobody has lived in for 10 years. The reason is because it belongs to the O'Grady's, who were Irish immigrants. I forget what the name, Martha, but it's definitely Daniel, because the first actual part of this whole thing is Daniel O'Grady pulls up to this old house in the middle of nowhere, Dakota. And he gets out. He's wearing a white suit. He finishes off a bottle of Irish whiskey, Jameson, and he throws it on the ground. He's very happy. And the limousine, he pulls up to the limousine. He's in the limousine, and then the limo driver comes like, "Hey, hold on, hey, Harry, hey, I want to give you something." And so he peels off like $400 bills and gives it to him. Like, "Thank you, sir. That's so nice of you." Like, "What are you doing, Daniel O'Grady?" says his wife, who's sitting on the porch. "You know we can't afford that money." Like, "Oh, don't you worry. We're rolling in it now, Martha, me dear." And because he apparently has just come back from going back to Ireland, where he was at a relative's funeral. And while he was there, he says to her, "I caught me a leprechaun. And I forced him to give me all his gold. So now we're rich," is what he says. I was like, "Oh, Daniel O'Grady, leprechauns. You're talking nonsense. Come in the house. I'll fix you something to eat." And so it is. I don't know where these two old people who came from Ireland at some point and bought terrible, worthless farmland in the middle of North Dakota. But anyways, like, "Oh, no, I'll come in a second. I've got to hide the gold, so the leprechaun can't find it. I'll go." And so he leaves, and she's in there. And she's boiling up some potatoes or whatever Irish people do. And then she hears a voice. She hears her husband Daniel O'Grady's voice from around the hall, and so she comes and looks, and it's not him. It's the leprechaun.
Dun dun dun.
And then the leprechaun's like, "Where's me gold?" That's basically, I would say, a good 60% of the lines read by Warwick Davis in the whole series are some variation on "Where's me gold?" That's basically a lot of it. It says like, "I don't have your gold. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, my husband Daniel, save me!" So then the leprechaun murders her. He like stabs her with some knife or something. This is straight up first thing, like, then oh yeah, so the Daniel O'Grady comes back from hiding the gold, and he walks in, and "Woman, where's me potatoes?" I don't know what he says, but he's then he sees that his wife is dead, and he realizes the leprechaun must have found him. So he pulls out of his pocket a little revolver, snub-nosed .38 revolver, and the other one a 4-leaf clover. And the leprechaun comes around, it's like he's doing the voice of the dead woman, and then comes around the corner. It's like, "Where's me gold?" he says, and it's like "I've got a 4-leaf clover. Don't come any closer." Like, 4-leaf clover, right? So then he's able to like walk the leprechaun down the stairs, like backing him down the stairs into the basement, right? And he does something where he hits the leprechaun with like a bat or something, knocks it unconscious, and throws it in the crate, and then puts the whole time though. Also, it's implied that the leprechaun is giving him heart palpitations. He's an older, heavy-set gentleman, so maybe it's just like a regular heart condition. But it's implied that it's the leprechaun making him having heart palpitations. So anyway, he's able to like nail the coffin closed and leave the 4-leaf clover on top. And he says, "Now you'll never get out, because the 4-leaf clover's keeping you in there. Oh, me heart." And then he goes to call the cops that his wife has been killed. And there's like 911 emergency. He's like, "Oh, it's me wife, the lepre." And so it's to be assumed that he died of the heart attack the leprechaun caused. So, and then it says 10 years later, and here's Jennifer Aniston and her dad, right?
It was a leprechaun double homicide, or like homicide /
right
involuntary homicide, almost like a
right. I honestly don't remember I also don't remember how he kills the wife, but it is odd that like somebody came and found this man murdered. Spoiler alert: he's not actually dead. He just had a stroke and he goes into a home and he hasn't spoken for 10 years. But wouldn't he be stand trial for his wife's murder if they found his wife?
A million%, right?
Maybe be like, "Oh, he interrupted a burglar who killed her, and we can't try a guy who can't speak because of his stroke, for murder."
Also, wouldn't the coffin in the backyard be found in an investigation, right?
Coffin? What coffin?
The one that the leprechaun's buried in?
No, a crate. He's not buried in it. He's in the basement, and there's all kinds of crap all over the basement. There's all kinds of crates, boxes, and stuff. So he has no relatives. He just whatever. So I don't know why it took 10 years for Jennifer Aniston's dad to buy this thing, but I guess she's moving in with him. She again, this is out in the middle of nowhere. This property, and so she's there with him, and she hates it, and she goes into the basement trying to help him clean it up so they can move in. There's cobwebs everywhere, and there's a tarantula in the basement. And I was like, that's not native to the Dakotas. That is a South American spider. This movie Arachnophobia. What has happened? Why is there a tarantula in the basement? But they're not concerned about any of that. So she's going to leave. She says, "I will use my credit card and I will get a hotel room in the city, and I am never coming back here. I'm going to fly home as soon as I can get to the airport in the morning. And then she walks out and sees a guy who's there to paint the house, and he's hot, and she's like, well, I might as well just stay for a while, I guess. It's that kind of thing. And it's ridiculous. Like she's so horny by the sight of the dude with slightly big muscles and a haircut that resembles Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse, and he's there, and all he does is tease her about how she's a little princess, prissy princess, and she can't get any dirt under her fingernails and everything. And she's like, "I'll prove it to you. I'm really good at house painting. Also, I'm not afraid of spiders." Oh, I'm so afraid of spiders. It's just ridiculous, right? So that guy's there, and his truck says Three Guys Who Paint is the name of the business that they run. And this guy's name is Nathan. He's got a kid brother, Alex. And the kid brother, Alex, is 11. And the kid brother, Alex, has a friend, Ollie. And Ollie is an adult male who was developmentally disabled. So this movie is made in 1993, and so you can guess with how much respect and sensitivity they treat a very big adult developmentally disabled man. It's with none at all. At some point, actually, they do near the end, but they just keep asking the guy to be like, I don't know, not at all respectful.
Of course.
So, but he's played by Mark Holton, who actually I do actually like as an actor, who played Francis in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and also played Chubby in Teen Wolf. Mark Holton, great late 80s character actor. And so they Mark Holton Ollie goes downstairs, and he's gonna try and get some stuff. Oh, he ends up getting paint all over him because the kid plays a prank on him, right? And Jennifer Aniston, who's there trying to help Nathan unload paint, is like, well, there's a bathroom inside if you can find it, if you can call it a bathroom. And so he goes in, and he goes through the wrong door and ends up in the basement trying to find something to get paint off of his face. And then he hears a voice of a child coming from inside a crate. "Please let me out. Please let me out. Why did you keep me in this crate? Please." He's like, "Well, how did you get in there? I'm going to let you out." And then he comes over, and he's going to try, and he brushes dust off the top of the crate. And in doing so, he brushes the 4-leaf clover off the crate. And then the leprechaun busts out of the crate, and then bites his ear off. And he starts screaming. Everybody comes down, and the leprechaun runs away. And he's like, "There was a leprechaun. He's here. He told me he wanted to shine my shoes, and then he bit my ear off, and he said he was going to kill me. He wanted to know where his gold was. I was so scared." And then there's like, "Oh, it's not a leprechaun, Ollie. Stories. Like, Alex, you fill in his head with all crazy nonsense. It's not. Well, I'll find it." And so they go and they look through the thing, and it's a rat. There's a rat in the back of the basement, so they assume it's a rat. It's like, a rat didn't bite my ear off. But no, it must be a rat. Must be a rat. Ollie, you're just dumb, and so it's a rat. So
did they bring him to a doctor or ask him if he had any sorts of
no? They just put a band.
You think a rat bit someone? I don't know. I lived in New York for 7 years. I don't. No, we're not messing around with that.
Nobody cares about that. Later, there's a thing where they assume it's a cat. So then the dad goes and tries to find the cat, assumes the cat, because he can hear him meowing, is inside a hollow tree trunk. So the dad puts his hand in there, and the leprechaun like bites all of his fingers off. And so they take the dad to the hospital, but Ollie, rabies, you're fine. But anyway, I forget how exactly they realize that it's like that. They go and they find a rainbow, right? They see a rainbow, And Ollie says, "Oh, the leprechaun's pot of gold's supposed to be at the end of the rainbow. Maybe if we find it and give it to him, then he'll go away." And so he runs after it, and Alex, the kid, follows him. And there's this old rusted out pickup truck, and under the floorboards, sure enough, there's a sack of gold, right? And so Ollie is looking at it real close, and then Alex hits him, and he drops it in his mouth and swallows it like he's a toddler. So Ollie has swallowed one piece of gold, right? So then the kid hides it someplace else because he thinks it's going to be really worth a lot. He takes one piece of gold with him because they're going to take it
to go to the bank.
Because they don't know what it's worth. Maybe it's worth it. So they're going to take it when they go into town to deal with the dad's fingers missing. They say, "Hey, we'll catch up with you guys later." And Ollie's like, "We will? Yeah, stupid, we will," says Alex. And they go to a coin collector's shop in this town. And they show it to the guy who's there, and he's like, "Well, where did you guys find this?" "None of your business." All right, well, it's old, I'll tell you that. These markings, I don't recognize any of them, but it's definitely gold. And so it's like, "Oh, okay, so how much is it worth?" "Well, I'll have to do some more research. I'll write you guys a receipt. I'll keep it. You can come back and get it in the morning. I'll tell you exactly how much it's worth." "So right, but don't you steal it. I will be okay." So that's fine. So then the leprechaun comes to the shop after it closes in the night, and he kills the shop owner by jumping on his chest with a pogo stick until he dies.
This is kind of like, what was the horror movie you watched with Kim Cattrall in it? Who was in it? But they were just like little, like almost Furby creatures, right? That would just latch onto you and kill you. There was a whole seance in the basement. They had moved into a house too.
I forget. Honestly, I have no idea. I forget what it was. I don't know what it was. It wasn't Chud, that's for sure. This is a different one. So they're trying to figure out what this is. They don't believe Ollie. It's still not a leprechaun, whatever. They have to leave the dad, who's the one adult here, because Nathan's not an adult. He's like 19.
He's one of three guys. Right. So Jennifer Aniston's horny for a 19-year-old. Got it.
But I think she's supposed to be around the same age. Okay. I think that's like
early 20s or something.
20-ish. You know what I mean? And so anyway, the adult in the whole situation has no fingers, and he's spending the night for observation in the hospital. So they go back to this estate, whatever, and this is where they run afoul of the leprechaun again. The leprechaun has been looking for the gold, and so while he was, I forgot about this. I think to pad the runtime, they have the leprechaun steal a little Power Wheels cart and drive it back to the house. So he's stolen one piece of gold, right? And he's driving back to the house, and he gets pulled over by a cop. And then there's a 10-minute game of cat and mouse between the leprechaun and the cop running through the forest before eventually he kills the cop. And he's able to drive the cop car back to the place. I don't know how, because his feet can't reach the pedals. That's a major point in a later movie. As I said, none of these movies really have anything to do with each other. It's like they rebooted the Leprechaun franchise 5 times in 10 years. But
like Lacey Evans reboots. It's just
yes. No, there has not been a movie where he was in the Marines, thank God. But yet. So he's able to finally get his gold back, right? Because he finds the gold, but he takes it and he counts it out one by one. There's the one he got back from the shopkeeper, and then all the gold, and he comes down to 99. I'm missing one piece of gold. Where's the one piece of gold? It's in Ollie's belly, so he's gonna have to try and anyway. So the leprechaun, like I don't know what is he stabs Nathan in the leg. There's a shotgun. That's the one piece of thing that they can get. Shotgun. There's a book that they read about leprechauns that teaches them what they can do to get rid of the leprechaun, and that thing is a clover. Like if you put a clover on him, he's no longer invincible or immortal. Like if you touch him with it, it'll hurt him, and he can be killed because he can't be killed. That's the thing. They shoot him a bunch of times with a shotgun, and he just pops up.
It's kryptonite for this guy.
Basically, there you go. Yes, much like another green thing, it is a clover. So they find a 4-leaf clover in the clover patch, and they're gonna do this. They're gonna hit him with it. But so it's so funny. Again, none of these movies have any relation to the others about how the leprechaun's powers work. Like none. So in later movies, he's got very long fingernails. He'll just like punch you in the abdomen and pull out an organ. You know what I mean? And it's fine. But later when he's trying to get the coin out of Ollie in this first movie, he's just scratching at his abdomen. And he makes him bleed a lot, but he doesn't like in later movies, he just like reach in and get the coin. Or in certain movies, he will just make the coin magically appear. Because he's magic. So the whole thing is like, yes, he's magic. He can do whatever he wants, but he should be consistent. Like if he can, as he shows in many other instances throughout the whole thing, if he can just blip somewhere, like he can just teleport himself from one place to another, then why is he stuck in anywhere? You know what I mean? Like,
why is he stealing a car? Yeah.
Can he just teleport himself back? Why does he need to steal a car? Like, whatever. He hurts Nathan, so Nathan's injured. He's going to kill Alex, the kid. But Ollie says, "Come on, you don't hurt him. He doesn't know where your gold is. It's me. I ate it. It's in my belly. So come and get it." And so the distraction of him clawing at the abdomen of Ollie is long enough so that they can get the clover. Jennifer Aniston can find the clover in the clover patch, run it from the other side of the field to over there, hand it to Nathan, who then says, "Hey, little guy," or whatever he calls him. And he turns around, short stuff. They use a lot of those kind of things. Pipsqueak, whatever. Shrimp, whatever. They a lot of those things get bandied about in this whole thing. So he turns around and he just like shoves the 4-leaf clover in his mouth. He's like, ah! He starts just vomiting and everything is just disgusting. And then he shoots him a bunch of times with the shotgun, and he falls into the well. Like he gets blown back several times and falls into the well outside the thing, and he falls down. And like, oh, thank God, that's it. And then he climbs back out, and now he's just like grotesque and like just ooey gooey green, disgusting stuff. And then he's like, get me out, and falls into the well. This is after the house catches fire for some reason during all of this craziness. This is like as an accident. So the whole thing burns to the ground. The last shot of the movie after all of this is Ollie, who's okay. He's not dead. He's just lost a lot of blood. And Nathan, who's going to need a full knee replacement. But everybody else is okay. And they walk out to a bunch of cop cars. By the way, they called the cops and like, leprechaun. Jennifer Aniston only finds out the way to kill a leprechaun is by going to, she leaves everyone else at the farm, gets in the one car they have that drives, and drives across town to the old folks' home to find Daniel O'Grady. When she gets there, the leprechaun has teleported from the farm to the old folks' home, maimed and mutilated Daniel O'Grady, and is now sitting in his room wearing a wig, facing the window with a shawl over him in his wheelchair. She has to run away from him, and when she finally finds Daniel O'Grady, who's been left to die in the elevator. He's the one who tells her about. He's the first time he's spoken in 10 years. He's someone tells about your only way to kill a leprechaun is with a 4-leaf clover. You can't kill him with a 4-leaf clover, but you can make it so he's vulnerable. And then me lass, I'm dead. So what I didn't understand is why they didn't like all pile in the one working vehicle and drive to Canada. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, but again, he can blip whenever he wants when the mood's
sometimes.
Anyway, so they called the cops. The cops are like, "What, Leprechaun? You're lying." But eventually, I guess they figure out that he's there, and so they pull up, and so there's all cop cars like drive up, and they all walk out, and they all and then the camera pans down into the well, right? And then there's a lot of what the leprechaun does is speaks in really terrible rhymes. You know what I mean? Some like he'll one of
Are
the
they limericks at least?
No, they're just rhymes. They're just rhymes. There's one limerick later, but like it's not even delivered by the leprechaun. But the limerick, like something like try as you may, try as you might, you're not going to live through the night. Like it's that kind of stuff, you know?
Got it.
So then he says something like that at the end of this movie, like I'll get out of here and I'll get me gold, but he says it in a rhyme, right? And that's the end of the first movie, 1993. The next year, 1994, they make Leprechaun 2. There is never any hint of how he got out of the well. Like he was like he just eventually recuperated and got out of the well. Did he ever get the gold back from Ollie's belly? Did Ollie poop it out and leave it somewhere that he found it? We don't know. No idea what happened.
Did he feel like 99% of the gold was okay? Like, did he just search within himself? And
yeah, I guess. And so the prologue to Leprechaun 2 is 1,000 years ago in Ireland. Okay. I should mention he tells the cop, because the cop asks for ID. Are you even old enough to be out here driving on the roads? Like, I'm 600 years old. I am, he says. Then in the prologue of Leprechaun 2, he says, it's me 1,000th birthday. So you were 600 years old in the first movie, and now you're 1,000 years old 1,000 years ago in the second movie. Again,
he's aging in reverse.
It could be.
No, that math wouldn't work out either.
He's Benjamin O'Button. And so he anyway,
and
he's
this
got
isn't a prequel. It just took place 1,000 years earlier.
The prologue takes place 1,000 years earlier.
Oh, okay.
So it's him, and he's there. It's like he's got a slave who's bound to him because the leprechauns caught him trying to steal his gold, and so by rights he then becomes his slave. So he says, all right, now I'll let you go, but it's me 1,000th birthday, and that's the day that I get to take me a bride. So you've got to help me get me a bride, and then if you do that, I'll let you go scot-free. Like, freedom is the most important thing to me. I don't care. I'll help you take any lass as your bride.
As established earlier, I'm a sissy and not have seen horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
Is this just a really bad Chucky?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
At one point,
thing.
At one point, they do call him one of the In the Hood movies. A young black man refers to him as really ugly Chucky or something like that, I think. But anyway.
Got it.
So he says, okay, well, I've picked out me perfect bride. And they walk over, and she's hanging up some clothes by the light of the full moon to dry. And the guy who's his slave sees her and goes, oh no, not that. Not me own daughter. You promised if you don't help me take her as me bride, then you'll be me slave for all eternity. And of course he can't do it. So the whole thing is the way that you get a guy, a woman, to become the leprechaun's bride is that he will force her to sneeze 3 times. And if no one during that 3 times blesses her, then she has to be his bride. That's the magic, right? So he goes, and she goes, achoo. Oh, wipes her nose again. And the guy's sitting there like, oh no, not me own daughter. Not me sweet Irish lass, no. And then he goes, she goes, achoo. And it's like, oh, but I don't want to be a slave for all eternity, do I? But it is my own daughter. And then he's about to blow a 3rd time, which would make her say, bless you. And so he does, and she goes, he goes, bless you. Achoo. You've ruined it. Now, Michael McGillicuddy, or whatever your name is. I'm
Michael McGillicuddy.
Yeah, I know it's a very Irish name.
In the 3rd one, he's Curtis Axel.
Right, exactly. He teams with some guy named Ryback. They're Rybaxel. It's weird.
So weird.
So anyway, he kills the guy. Like he drags him up by his neck and hangs him by a magic lasso, like magic noose. So he's hanging in the and now don't worry. On me next 1000th birthday, I'll take a bride of that's of your lineage. O'Day, that's his name. Michael O'Day. So a bride of the O'Day lineage will be mine on me next 1000th birthday. So
he's not enslaved. He kills him?
He kills him. Like he could have decided to keep him enslaved, but he decided because he's so enraged, he kills him. And then like to whatever. I don't know why he doesn't.
Couldn't he have just made her sneeze later?
Apparently, it has to happen at the full moon on his 1000th birthday or whatever. I don't know. Whatever. I get maybe only get one shot at it. It's not really explained. So the opening credits. Oh, by the way, the girl hears a big thump in the woods and goes to investigate like you would, and finds a dead man lying on the ground and goes to turn him over like you would, and then sees it's her own father and then screams. And then the camera pushes in, so we see her mouth screaming, and the camera goes in there, and then we get to the opening credits. And the credits are actually kind of cool. Like, it's one of the most artistic things they do in the entire series, where you see somebody drawing as if with like charcoal on parchment, the lineage of the women over thousands of years. Like every time there's and it's not, it breezes over most of them, but it finally gets to like 1900. And then it draws a boat that goes, so they come from Ireland to America. And there's one that's like a flapper, and one that is like 1940s, and then one is 1960s. And then it draws this beautiful young woman in modern clothes, in 1994 clothes. And then the credits end, and then we see her, like in the flesh, in reality. And she's walking to meet her boyfriend, who works for his uncle because he's an orphan, because of course he is. And the uncle is a drunk who runs in Los Angeles a tour of all the big Hollywood murder houses, basically. And so this guy's job is to weasel a bunch of know-nothing tourists into getting into the back of a hearse so that Uncle Morty can go take him on a tour for like $100 a pop to get in this whole thing. And so he does that, but he has big plans with his girlfriend Bridget, and he's supposed to go out. And Morty's drunk at the bar, and so he can't take him. So he decides, Bridget, why don't you come with me, and I'll drive, and I'll take him on the tour. And as soon as we're done with the tour, then we'll go to our big hot date, super romantic, you and me going to, which sounds kind of ironic now that I think about it, the go-kart place. So at least that's consistent. So anyway, the go-kart place is really important that she goes to ride go-karts tonight. She's so livid with her boyfriend for bailing out his alcoholic uncle and getting having a job, where he gets paid to do this so he can buy her stuff, that she breaks up with him. When they she won't speak to him. She's just so angry at him with the whole tour. When they finally get to the go-kart place, she breaks up with him in favor of another classmate of theirs who works at the go-kart place. At least she doesn't really, but what's his name? I don't know. I'm going to call him Charlie. Charlie thinks that she broke up with him. So he's really angry. I should mention that when they're driving past the Harry Houdini, I guess it's not murders, it's just famous people who lived in Hollywood and died. So when they're driving past the old Harry Houdini estate, they, the camera veers away from their little tour, and we see a homeless guy who goes and sets up a little bedroll to lay down and drink himself into a stupor and fall asleep under the shade of a giant tree. And the tree says, "To Harry Houdini, from all of your friends in Killarney, Ireland." Like, apparently they shipped a tree to Los Angeles to be grown in the backyard of Harry Houdini, and in that tree was the leprechaun. That's how the leprechaun apparently got from, I don't know if he made a pit stop in North Dakota along the way or what was up with that, but that's why he's there. And anyway, he comes out of the tree and he steals the homeless guy's whiskey and he drinks. He's like, "Oh, Canadian blend? Don't you know the only whiskey is Irish whiskey?" And then he yanks out the old guy's gold tooth because he loves gold. So this is where in the second movie, the only thing that can hurt a leprechaun is not a 4-leaf clover. I don't believe 4-leaf clovers are even mentioned in this movie. It's wrought iron. That's the only thing that can hurt a leprechaun.
What?
I don't know, but don't know. Wrought iron. So anyway, this is where I don't, because he's here. He's not here for his gold. He's here for his future bride. So he wants to find Bridget. He knows where she is. He knows that she's here. It's his next 1000th birthday tonight. So he's gonna go and he's gonna find her. And he goes to her house because Ian, the other boy from the go-kart place, gives her a ride home, and he thinks he's gonna get some. And she's like, "No, you're not coming inside. My parents aren't home." "Yeah, I know exactly." That's right. So I could come in.
That means I'm entitled to sex.
He's like, "No, that's not happening, Ian. Good night. It was fun. Good night." It's like, "But what about those chili dogs? I paid for those chili dogs. You owe me." So immediately, like, "Oh, this guy sucks." So you hit the bricks, Ian. So she goes inside, and then he's getting back in his car, and the garage door slides open, and there is Bridget, but it's a vision of Bridget. You can tell because she's slightly haloed. It's like, "Ian, hello. Come, I changed my mind. You know how women are. Come inside the garage and let's have sex," or something. And then she, like, gratuitous nudity. No reason for it. She's full on topless in this thing. And I'm like, oh, that's why the actress who plays Bridget is so terrible, because they had to find somebody who would agree to full topless nudity. And sure. a lot of the young women
pointless nudity
for pointless.
Yeah.
So and then so Ian comes up to her and thinks he's he gets on his knees and he thinks he's gonna totally motorboat her, right? But instead, speaking of motors, he's actually motorboats a lawnmower that's been put up like this and the blades are turning. So he motorboats a lawnmower's rotor blades and his face explodes in a hail of blood. So that's like the new thing that the leprechaun can do now is make you think you're seeing something when it's not there, and then can be something else. Yeah. So the cops come, of course, because a young man has been motorboated to death. Or
what it looks like voluntarily put his face in a lawnmower blade.
Right. But that who would do that? So it must have been foul play.
Sure.
This is after the leprechaun reveals himself to because Charlie comes over with flowers because his uncle Morty says, "What are you doing? You gotta chase the girl. That's what she wants, right?" So she goes over with flowers and she forgives him because of course she does, because that's what she is. And they're gonna go out and get some burgers and shakes. But the guy's there is like, you shouldn't be kissing on another man's bride. I'm gonna get you. And so the only thing that Charlie has to fight back with is a fireplace poker, which happens to be made out of wrought iron. And the thing of it is they have not explained to us yet that wrought iron hurts leprechauns. They have not explained that to us in this movie. Okay, so he swings it, and the leprechaun catches it, and immediately the wrought iron poker turns red where he's caught it, and his hand starts to burn, and he goes, "Ah!" And I was like, wait a minute, there wasn't a fireplace. There wasn't a fire in the fireplace, and the poker wasn't in the fireplace. It was like hanging on those little things where you hang fireplace pokers. Was that just a horrible goof? And then, like 40 minutes later, we learn the only thing that can hurt a leprechaun is wrought iron. And I go, oh, the poker thing. That made no sense.
So it's not even that the characters don't know. We, the audience, don't know.
No. Right. So, anyway, so it's most of it is just them being chased by the leprechaun throughout all kinds of stuff. Leprechaun gets killed in many different ways, but they're not with a wrought iron, so not. But Morty sobers up and helps them because once he realizes Leprechaun, that he knows all the ways about it. He's an old Irish guy himself. Well, actually, no, he's an old Jewish guy, but his wife was Irish, I think. Anyway, so he finds a book that he knows all about leprechauns, and he's the one who tells him about the wrought iron. And so they go back to the go-kart place. I don't know why, but they're back at the go-kart place. Earlier, we saw there was a giant safe in the office of the go-kart place. So they're going in there to I don't know why they're there. I forget why they're there. Doesn't matter. So they're able to trick there's a giant guard dog that patrols the go-kart place, right? The guard dog is going to eat the leprechaun, but leprechaun goes arf, arf back to the dog, and the dog runs away because he's scared of the leprechaun. The only reason the dog needs to be there is so there is a giant doggy door in the door to the office from the outside. Right? And so inside the office, through the big window of the office door, you can see Charlie. He's waving at the leprechaun. Leprechaun's like, ah! And he runs and dives through the doggy door. And what's on the other side of the doggy door? But the big wrought iron safe, which now he can't get out of because they close it up and he can't get in there. The way they were able to open it, I guess, is because Morty taught his nephew how to crack safes. It's very briefly mentioned. I was like, I feel like there should be more that we should know about this.
Sure.
Were they knocking over banks when he was younger? I don't know. So this is the point where it's very funny. Is they've decided that if you trap a leprechaun in this movie, if you trap a leprechaun, he has to give you 3 wishes. Right?
So he becomes a genie leprechaun.
Yes.
Of course.
Again, in every one of these movies, the rules are very different.
Change.
So we trapped a leprechaun. So the I don't know why the kid is locked inside a closet, but Morty won't let him out because Morty wants to use the wishes from the leprechaun to like get rich or something. But he's also vindictive, so he doesn't want to I could ask you for $1 million. I could ask you for $1 billion, and you'd have to grant my wish. But I don't want that. I want your gold. Just to stick it to the leprechaun, right? Because that's who Morty is. And so it's like, all right, I'll give you me gold. And I feel like this is also you could say oh, be careful what you wish for, but that's not what he wished for. Morty did not wish for this, which is for all of his gold to be in Morty's belly. Like the actor who's playing Morty is like sitting there, and all of a sudden his abdomen starts to expand, and it's filled with hundreds, thousands of pieces of gold inside his abdominal cavity. I don't know why. I don't know. Says, no, get it out, please. I can help you get it out, but you have to wish. I have to be out of the safe. All right. I'll get you out of the safe. No, you have to wish me out of the safe. It hurts so much. Fine, I wish you out of the safe. That's 2 wishes. Like, all right, please get this out of me. But you have to wish it out of you. Like, I wish you all of this gold out of me. So he uses the 3 wishes. To wish for the gold, which then apparently means the gold is in your belly, and then to wish the leprechaun out of the safe, which I feel like didn't need to happen, and also then to wish for the gold out of his belly. And of course, he wishes for gold out of his belly. He didn't say how it would be out of his belly. So then the leprechaun just uses his little pointy nail and slits open his abdomen and reaches in and pulls out all the gold along with all of his organs. And so Uncle Morty is dead. And I'm like, Uncle Morty was not as smart as he thought he was.
No, that's a very weird mental chess game. But I gotta say, like, if you're wishing for the gold out of your belly, that should include the process of the leprechaun coming out of the safe. That feels unfair.
Right. I feel like also as well, right? Ogre says, just a little support. Hope people have a good weekend. These movies are still better than Ginger Dead Man. I think there are 3 of them. Yes. We're not doing Ginger Dead Man. So
no more horror movies that I can't watch.
Yeah.
I want to watch kids' movies.
We don't want to watch this one either. So anyway, he kidnaps Bridget and takes her back to his lair underneath the Harry Houdini tree.
Of course.
And I forget exactly how Charlie ends up killing him. It doesn't really matter. Like,
Leprechaun's dead though by the end of this.
Yeah, and they're able to get him out, and there's fine. He's still in the bottom of the tree, but he's dead. But like, it doesn't matter, right? Because
of course not.
Listen, there's a lot of other crap, but all you need to know is that at the end of this, Charlie rescues Bridget by doing like a little okey doke on the leprechaun and making the leprechaun think that Charlie is dead. And then he's not, so he pops up and he like kills him with something. I don't know exactly what it is. But anyway, that's all you need to know. Leprechaun is dead, right? Bridget and Charlie are fine. Charlie does not appear at all concerned about his only living relative has been killed via gold in the gut. And we're moving on. Everything's fine. Oh, by the way, also, the police firmly believe that Charlie killed Ian. Bridget's parents hate Charlie. They think he's no good. So they told the cops that the dead boy in their garage can only have been killed by Charlie, right? This is not resolved by the end of the movie. It's not like Bridget's going to be like, no. Ian is dead, yes, but Charlie didn't kill him. It was the leprechaun who killed him. There is no leprechaun anymore. Anybody who saw the leprechaun and can attest to it being there ever is now dead. Or they are Charlie or Bridget. And Bridget has a reason to speak up for Charlie, even if it's in the weirdest possible way. Charlie is going to be arrested and do serious time for the murder of Ian, and nobody's going to stop it. So it's not really a happy ending. But I guess that explains why they're not in Leprechaun 3. Leprechaun 3 takes place in Las Vegas for some reason. The opening of Leprechaun 3, there is an Indian man, a South Asian man who is running a pawn shop, and a man comes in who has one eye, a peg leg, and a hook for a hand. And he brings in a big statue of a leprechaun. The statue of the leprechaun is wearing, yes?
You immediately had my attention at like swashbuckle pirate with leprechaun statue.
Right.
Set in Vegas.
Right.
Okay. That's just the ride we're in for.
Unfortunately, the last time you see this peg-legged, one-eyed, hook-handed man is right now. So he drops off the thing. He wants some money for gas to get out of Las Vegas. So he drops off the statue of the leprechaun. The statue of the leprechaun is wearing around its neck a silver medallion with a big red stone in the middle of it. It looks very plastic, very fake, but the shopkeeper immediately thinks it's worth a lot of money. And so he reaches for the medallion. First of all, like this statue isn't worth anything. Now the medallion, though, it's like, no, it's a package deal. You buy one off me, you buy them both. Says the crazy guy. Like, sure, I'll give you $20, $50, 40. All right, 40. So this man sells the statue of the leprechaun with the thing around his neck to the pawn shop owner for $40. And he takes his money and he leaves. We never see him again. We never find out how that guy came into contact with the leprechaun. But he always says, "Oh, hey, what is this? What is the leprechaun anyway?" And he says, "Lucky charm," says the guy with one eye, one hand, and one leg. So that's the joke. It's a lucky charm. Get it?
We don't even find out why he's a pirate.
No, it's just because bad luck happened because the eye, whatever. So I gotta get through a lot of these. I'm
sorry. Go ahead.
Let's go. So the only thing you need to know about this is that the leprechaun, he takes the medallion off the statue, and the leprechaun comes back to life. So the leprechaun is in the statue.
Of the movie Mannequin.
Right. So the statue, the medallion on the neck of the thing turns him into a statue. So take the medallion off, no statue. So that's a new thing, entirely new. No one's ever explained it, ever has bothered to explain it. It comes back. The medallion thing comes back. They use it again in Leprechaun in the Hood. Nobody ever explains that either. So anyway, the shopkeeper actually lasts longer than most people who've run afoul of the leprechaun. I don't know where the gold comes from, but the gold exists. Maybe it was also part of the statue. One piece of gold falls out of the bucket, and the shopkeeper finds it, and he's holding onto it. And he puts in, this is why you know it's from 1995. He puts in a CD-ROM into the little thing of his desktop computer, and which is all about leprechauns and a really terrible PowerPoint that's kind of animated with really bad clip art. So he learns about leprechauns. This is how we learn about leprechauns as well, at least this whole thing. For every piece of gold you are in possession of from the leprechaun, he has to grant you one wish. Okay? Now, we don't find this out actually until later. But leprechaun kills the shop owner. He
1-to-1 ratio of gold to wish.
Right.
Got
it. He kills the shop owner. But before he says, "Ooh, Indian food. I love Indian food. So spicy." And he bites the ear off of the Indian shopkeeper. He's a big thing for ears. So he's able to kill that guy. And he's stuffed all of his gold into a safe in the back room of the pawn shop for safekeeping, right? So he can't find his other piece of gold. He counts all of his gold in his bucket. He's a gold short. This is where the two plot lines at the beginning of the movie dovetail, because there's a hot chick whose car blew up basically on the side of the road. There's smoke coming out of her and everything. And a Good Samaritan pulls over, skinny guy, good-looking kid, says, "Oh, I don't know anything about cars, but I could give you a ride." So he gives her a ride. She is a magician's assistant at the worst, seediest casino in Vegas. And he says, "I've never been to Vegas. I'm driving across country to Los Angeles for my first year of college. I thought I'd swing by Vegas and see what it's like. I've never been." And she says, "Oh, it's terrible. You get out of here while you can. It sucks the life out of you. It's terrible." And he's like, "I've never been. hey, can I come inside with you when you get there to go to the casino? It's like, but you're not 21. You're like, I could get in a lot of trouble. It's like, I promise I won't do anything. Listen, whatever you do, don't gamble. Okay? But you can come in. I got to go and get ready for my magic show. So he comes in and immediately starts gambling. Because he's so taken in by everything. He doesn't have any money, but he does have a cashier's check from his parents. He opens up the envelope, and inside there's a note that says, this should cover your tuition, books, and housing. Love you, Mom and Dad. Opens up the little note, inside a cashier's check for $23,000. Very generous, Mom and Dad are. So he goes and he goes up, talks to the pit boss, and he's like, hey, kid, well, you've been old enough to be in here. He's like, where can I cash this check? He looks at the check and goes, yeah, you're old enough to be in here. Right over there, you can catch this check. So we also see that there's Loretta. Loretta is a blackjack dealer or a roulette dealer in the casino, but she used to be the magician's assistant for this magician, but then she got too old and gained a little weight, and so she had to be replaced. She's very resentful of that, doesn't like the new hot girl who is the magician's assistant, right? Magician also total hack magician, not very good at all, as you would expect from the Cedars Casino in Vegas. Anyway, so all of this comes together where the guy winds up losing all of his money, loses $23,000 at the roulette table in a span of what has to be 15 minutes for the movie to work at all time-wise, because it all takes place on one night. He has to have lost all of his money in 15 minutes. I don't know if he put it all on black or whatever, and that's it. But like, anyway, he loses. And he's like, oh my God, I lost all of my money. What do I do? He's like, oh, come on. You're due for a win streak. You've lost all these times. Yeah, you're due. You got to win once. He's like, but I don't have any money. Hey, that watch looks like it might be worth a little bit of money. And it says Loretta, the roulette dealer. And he says, but my grandfather gave me this watch. I'm sure your grandpa wouldn't mind if you went. There's a pawn shop across the best way. Tell him Loretta sent you. So he goes to the pawn shop and finds dead guy. And then he also finds CD-ROM playing facts about leprechauns and finds a gold coin. And then the thing is playing, and he leaves with the gold coin after not telling anybody about the dead guy. Leaves with the gold coin. And we hear as he leaves the CD-ROM saying, if you have a piece of gold for Leprechaun, you take a wish, he's got to grant it to you, right? He doesn't know it. Nobody knows it except for us, right? So he's walking there. Oh, I wish I would start a win streak, he says, holding on to his coin in his hand. And then he bets the money. I guess he stole from the pawn shop. I don't know where he got the money, but he got some chips. He bets some money, but he puts a stack of chips, and he's holding the gold coins on top of the chips, and the gold coin, like a Ouija board, moves the stack of chips to where the roulette wheel is going to stop. So he does that enough times in a row to make like $150,000. And so all of this goes on. Eventually the gold coin transfers hands back and forth with the Leprechaun trying to find everybody. The pit boss comes into contact with the gold coin, and while he's holding it, Loretta tells him, you couldn't get anybody. You're so fat and ugly and old. You couldn't get any woman. Oh yeah, I could get Tammy if I wanted her. Tammy is the hot magician's assistant. Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I wish. He says, yeah, you wish you could get Tammy. Yeah, that's right. I wish I could get Tammy. And then Tammy comes in. She's like all hot to trot, like she got a love potion. And she's like, oh, Mitch, take me upstairs. Take me now. And so she goes upstairs with Mitch. And the Leprechaun is inside the TV. I don't know. That's a new thing he can do. He can put himself in a TV to like, he also can make other things manifest out of the TV. There's a hot girl on the TV who by the way, I don't know what happens, but Tammy comes to and doesn't actually go through with having sex with Mitch. But then she leaves. She slaps him. He fires her. She goes and finds the kid. Oh, by the way, the kid got bit by the leprechaun and is now turning into a leprechaun. So he's a were-leprechaun. The leprechaun bites so many people, I cannot tell you. Dozens of people get bit by the leprechaun and survive at least for a little bit. But none of them turn into a leprechaun except for this kid is turning into a leprechaun. Honestly, that's probably the coolest part of any of these movies is the idea that if the leprechaun bites you, you begin to turn into a leprechaun. And also, much like the Highlander, with leprechauns, there can be only one. So, like, there can be only one leprechaun. So now the leprechaun hates the new leprechaun. And the new leprechaun, while turning into a leprechaun, the most thing he needs to do is to also kill the first leprechaun. That's a really cool idea for a movie. It doesn't have to be a leprechaun. It could be any kind of weird mystical creature.
If there can only be one, why would you bite the other leprechaun? That makes no sense.
Exactly. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe like us, he didn't know that he would turn into that he would become a leprechaun. We don't know. I'm not sure. Anyway, the kids are turning to leprechaun. Tammy has been fired and her life is over, and so she and the skinny kid is turning to leprechaun, are trying to fight the leprechaun. Loretta comes into contact with the Mitch gets killed by a robot. The hot girl that came out of the I don't understand. Don't ask me to explain it. The hot girl that manifested out of the television was actually a robot and electrocuted the man to death because he was having sex with it. And I guess like he got electric shocked through the.
It's like an Austin Powers fembot.
Yep. And so that's how he dies. Did I mention also there are like a couple of Russian mafia guys who want their money from the pit boss, and those guys get killed by the leprechaun as well. But when Loretta comes into contact with a gold coin, and she knows that she somehow figures it out that if you wish while you hold the gold coin, something. I wish I had the body of a 20-year-old. I wish every man would want me. And so then they just take the wig off of the actress playing Loretta, and they take out the fat pads around her butt and her hips. And all of a sudden she's got a good body again. And so then the leprechaun shows up in her dressing room after she walks through the casino floor and all the guys' heads turn. She's like, I'm so hot. Anyway, so before this happens, the magician comes in here and realizes what the gold coin is and steals it from Loretta, locks her in the dressing room. He runs away. He says, I wish I was the greatest magician in the world. So then he becomes a magician. So the leprechaun, to punish Loretta for being vain, causes her chest to balloon up to ridiculous size, her butt to get gigantic, her lips to swell, and everything keeps swelling and swelling and swelling until she explodes. That's what the leprechaun does in this movie. So before we see that the magician guy, his big trick that he wanted to do was, instead of like the sawing a woman in half trick, he wanted to use a flamethrower and light the fake coffin thing that she was in on fire. Now, she will have already dropped through the trap door. She won't be in there, but the big thing will be like, we're going to light you on fire. At some point, the leprechaun comes in, and they have a battle of magic that is weird because it ends up with the magician guy inside the sawing in half thing. And he's the greatest magician in the world, but can't magic himself out of the sawing in half contraption. So he's resorted to saying, I wish I were at Caesar's palace. And the leprechaun says, boyo, you already had your one wish. You get nothing. So apparently you can only have one wish, and that's it. So then the leprechaun saws him in half while the entire crowd thinks it's a gag, and he dies horribly. And then here comes Tammy and skinny leprechaun guy, and they're gonna, like, the gold. There's the gold. So because he's turning into leprechaun, there are two things he wants the most. He wants the custody of the gold, and he wants to kill the other leprechaun. Okay, so the custody of the gold, he's like, no, you can only have one. So drop the gold and kill him. He's like, but I want me gold. Actually, the kid who's playing the leprechaun, turning into Leprechaun, has a better Irish accent than the actual Leprechaun. It was very good for him.
Good
But
on him, yeah.
You're totally upstaging the lead, so maybe not. Maybe that's why I never saw him work in anything else before. So anyway, what they do is at the end, they trick the Leprechaun, into going for the gold, the actual Leprechaun, and then the fake Leprechaun goes and gets the flamethrower and flame throws the gold, melts it all, and also incinerates the Leprechaun. So he's nothing but ash. And there's only one gold coin left. And Tammy is holding onto it. And when the Leprechaun dies, it should be that the kid who's turning into a Leprechaun becomes a full Leprechaun because the other Leprechaun is dead. But instead what happens is the reverse of that, and he goes back to being full skinny kid. So the magic that you created, the rules you developed don't exist anymore. Because there can be only one Leprechaun. Once the second Leprechaun that is not yet a Leprechaun kills the first Leprechaun, shouldn't he therefore have to be the one Leprechaun?
Yes, but also does the necklace at the beginning of the movie just not come back into play at all?
I don't think it, not enough that I remember it. So then no.
It feels like it should be something that is pivotal. Like if that can turn him back into a statue, there's no attempt to just.
I don't believe that the kid ever finds that out.
So that whole scene was unnecessary then.
It is a major plot point in Leprechaun 5 in the Hood, but it is not so much so in Leprechaun 3 in Las Vegas. But so he's dead. He's been burned, incinerated, and they walk out of the casino. By the way, everyone in the casino just saw a man get sawed in half.
Right.
They walk out of the casino. There's nobody on the streets of Vegas whatsoever. And he's like, so what are you going to do now? She says, you got the gold. You got one piece of gold. What are you going to make a wish? It's like, no, here, why don't you make a wish? We could be billionaires. Because apparently they're going to make a life together, I guess. But she says, no, you know what? I think I got everything I want. And so she takes the thing and she flicks it into the wishing well, the little fountain around in front of the thing, and they walk off together, and everything's happy and everything's fine. And she never made a wish, and the leprechaun is dead. It's in a pile of ash in the back of some casino in Vegas. Cut to Leprechaun 4 in space, and Leprechaun 4 in space is actually a very clever little parody on like aliens and space marine movies. There's actually a lot of fun stuff in it, but it has there's no need for a leprechaun to be involved at all. None. Nobody in the film even recognizes him as a leprechaun. Nobody says, hey, it's a leprechaun. They say he's an alien or a little monster. They call him a bastard a bunch of times. Hey, you bastard. There's a troop of space marines. The sergeant has like half a head that he lost when he got hit with a grenade or whatever. Somehow he survived with his skull blown apart. Like that's how tough he is, right? So they put like a metal plate that you can see. Like it's just like half of his head is like chrome or whatever. And there's a whole troop of, there's the wisecracking black guy space marine. There's the hard as nails chick marine. There's all these dumb marines that honestly they're obviously going to get killed. And then there's the one like really really heroic marine, but everybody makes fun of him because he likes to read, so his nickname is Books. And then there's the really hot science officer who's been forced by the person who's paying all these Marines to go and do, they're all a bunch of mercenaries, to go and do some mission on the world. So she's going to be there to supervise them, but they all resent her because she's not one of them. It's very much a spoof of aliens. So they go to this world to, I think they're trying to like secure a mine or something. I don't really know what they're there for, but the leprechaun is in space. I don't know how he got there. Don't ask me how he got there, but he is in space trying to woo the princess of the planet Dominia, because he wants to marry her so that he can then become a king. because that's all he wants to do is become a king. He doesn't care about gold, doesn't care about gold at all, just wants to become a king, wants his princess so he can become a king. Again, no idea. The princess only wants the leprechaun. I guess the leprechaun does have gold, so I don't know why he wants to be a king if it doesn't come with gold. He has gold, we never see the gold, but she says, I'll marry you for your gold, whatever. Anyway, while they're having this like hot romantic dinner, deciding their prenup agreement, I guess, the Space Marines come down and they kill the leprechaun with a grenade, right? And the hot chick dives out of the way, but she loses a hand in the explosion, I guess. It hits her head, and they take her back to the world. They scan her, so they find out she's the Princess of Dominia, a yet undiscovered planet. If it's yet undiscovered, how do you know its name? And also, how do you know they have a government system based on a monarchy where she is the princess? Honestly, none of this makes any sense. So, but what the least thing that makes sense is that one of the guy that threw the grenade, apparently, as is his right as a Space Marine, after his kill, he's allowed to pee on it. So he pees on the kill, and the spirit of the leprechaun, I kid you not, travels up the stream of urine and enters the Marine's penis.
I feel like we should have spent the past 2 hours talking about only this one.
There really isn't much to talk about, honestly, as far as Leprechaun things go. It is a crazy movie and probably deserves its own episode. But as far as like Leprechaun thing, it's not really about leprechauns at all.
Doesn't seem it.
There's a crazy man who's like, his name is Dr. Mittenhand, and he is German. I don't know why in the year 2096 that he talks like he is from Nazi Germany, but he does. And his whole thing is to try and find a way to like regenerate himself because he's only like half a torso and a head after the accident. And so anyway, a lot of crap. We can find out that the Princess of Dominia has in her blood the ability to, in her DNA, the ability to regenerate. She regenerates the hand that was blown off in the explosion. So they realize now they can regenerate the body of Dr. Mittenhand, and so that's what they want to do. Meanwhile, the leprechaun has exploded out of the penis of the man who peed on him, while the man was having foreplay with the hard as nails Marine chick. So
if someone has a boner, the leprechaun who has no leprechaun qualities really can explode out of his penis. That's
what happens. So then the toughest nails chick Marine swears vengeance on that little bastard for what he did to Kowalski. So they all try and go after him. Each of them is killed in terrible ways. Apparently, the way that they dispose of waste on this ship is with flesh-eating bacteria. And so they think that the leprechaun went in there. And if he did, why wouldn't he have also been eaten by the flesh-eating bacteria? We don't know, but they have to put on hazmat suits and go in after him. I don't know why. The leprechaun slices with his little pointy fingers. He slices a hole in one of the two guys' hazmat suits. And by the time the other guy is able to drag him back into the airlock, get him decontaminated and everything, by the time of that, they take off his hood and the whole thing is just a skeleton. Just a bloody skeleton. That's how fast the flesh-eating bacteria work. That apparently you need them to dispose of human waste in this spaceship. That's how human waste is disposed of, via flesh-eating bacteria. Yeah, so.
I gotta be honest, it feels a little chaotic.
Right. Beep Boop, this is Leprechaun 4. Keep up. Beep Boop says that this is selling on Leprechaun 2. This is Leprechaun. We're now Leprechaun 4 in space. Leprechaun 4 in space. Honestly, it's the one I would recommend the most out of all of them because it is the craziest of all of them. Yeah. So anyway, the Leprechaun also was able to use mind control. So he mind controls the chrome-domed sergeant into thinking he is a woman. So he dresses up as a woman, puts on a wig. I don't know where he gets the glittery mini dress and the wig on this Space Marine flight, but he does a little dance and they have to kill him because he won't stop trying to kill them. Yeah, that's the thing that happens. Dr. Mittenhand is the leprechaun and the princess, when she comes to, join forces and become a duo of evil. And honestly, it's the most fun they ever had with the leprechaun. He has with him a sidekick woman who secretly hates him, but they have the same end, which is they want to see all of these Space Marines dead. So that they're bickering back and forth like an old married couple, and it's honestly some fun dialogue. It just makes no sense at all, but it's honestly like the dialogue is fun. So they decide that they've captured Dr. Mittenhand, and they're going to combine her regenerative DNA. They put it in a blender from his laboratory. They take a scorpion and a spider, and they put them in there, and they blend it up, and they inject that into his brain, and then he becomes Dr. Mittenspider, and he's like a horrible, grotesque, like, well, I would say half spider, half man, but it's like 78% spider, 22% man.
It's like a man, bear, pig situation.
Yeah, and anyway, so they're able to finally kill the leprechaun when they shoot it out of the airlock. The leprechaun has already started the self-destruct mechanism. They're able to figure out how to disable that. So then the only people who are still alive are the hot science lady, Private Books, who is the hero guy, and then the wisecracking black guy, and the two of the hot smart guy and smart heroic guy and the hot chick start making out, and the black guy's like, none for me, I guess. And then he looks outside of the window, and because what happens when you get sent out of the airlock, you explode, and so it's just the hand of the leprechaun passing by the window, and then just does one of these pass by. End of Leprechaun 4.
That sounds like the greatest movie ever made.
1993 Leprechaun 1, 1994 Leprechaun 2, 1995 Leprechaun 3, 1996 Leprechaun 4 in space. 4 years pass by. Leprechaun in the Hood.
Someone's like, we got to pick the Leprechaun franchise back up.
Rebooted entirely. In the 1970s, Ice-T and a friend of his find underneath a subway, they find a room where the leprechaun is a statue with the medallion around his neck in the 1970s. It's the same beginning of the same convention of the beginning of Leprechaun 3. But a new thing is involved, because the only thing that Ice-T wants down there in front of a whole room of riches, the only thing he wants down there is a magic flute. Magic golden flute. That's the only thing he wants. His friend gets greedy, was filling a garbage bag with jewels and riches, and then he's like, I like that medallion, I'm going to wear that. Takes the medallion off of the statue. Immediately, Leprechaun back to life. So then the Leprechaun kills Ice-T's friend, and Ice-T is shooting at the Leprechaun, right? And then they fight and everything, somehow the medallion flies way up in the air and happens to land around the neck of the Leprechaun. Just really, really lucky, bad luck for the Leprechaun. Very unlucky Leprechaun. And so then flash forward 30 years or 25 years. And Ice-T, apparently, using the power of the magic flute, is the hottest record producer in the world. He runs basically their version of Death Row Records, and he's the king of gangster rap. Also, he's a pimp. He has to also be a pimp, because this is a blaxploitation film through and through. There's it's absolutely a blaxploitation film for the 1970s, but just in 2000. So he's a pimp, and he's a murderer, and he's the hottest gangster rap producer. That's what they've done with this thing. But he was involved. He was an executive producer. This was his idea. He wanted this movie to get made. So a bunch of guys who do positive rap, we rap about being positive and helping your community. And so these guys are, of course, they're corny, and these guys aren't real black guys. So Ice-T says, you guys got skills and you got a good look, but you got to rap about getting bitches and shooting mother effers. And also shooting bitches while you're getting mother effers, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And if you don't do that, then you're not going to be on my label. Get the hell out of here. So they somehow they say, oh, we don't like that guy, and we need money to get to Vegas so that we can enter a rap competition. And once we get into win the rap competition, we're going to get large. We're going to become big and famous. And so, how we're going to get the money? I know. We'll rob Ice-T, and they do. They rob Ice-T, and when they rob Ice-T, they find not only golden flute, but they also find encased in a glass case is the leprechaun statue with the thing around his neck. Like, apparently, he took it from Harlem, New York, to South Central LA with him. I don't know if you like ship that or if you could check it in a bag or whatever, but that's how it got there. And so they take the medallion off, because why wouldn't you? It's a really nice looking medallion. And then the leprechaun comes back, and he wants his magic flute. He wants his magic flute more than anything else. But the kid, Positive P, is the name of the raffer. Positive P. He knows that he wants the magic flute. Somehow he knows the magic flute like makes everybody like your music. Doesn't matter how bad your music is, it makes everyone like your music. That's what the magic flute does.
So it's a record label.
Yes, that's what. Yes. There's so many little music performances by Positive P and his gang. There's a terrible, like, just awful, so 2000 transphobic subplot where they can't stay at their houses because the leprechaun knows where they live. I don't know why. So they go and they stay with Miss Fontaine, who is the most obvious thing that they're doing. She will let them stay with her for a bunch of money. They don't want to, but they'll do it. And he's like, oh, thank you for the money. Every little bit helps so Miss Fontaine can get her operation. And the boys look at her like, it's really bad. And then she decides that she will have sex with the leprechaun willingly because she's kinky and she's into kind of crazy stuff, she says. And so then leprechaun kills her while they're having sex. So that's a thing that happens for no reason at all. I don't know. I don't know. So they doesn't matter. None of this matters. They're able to. So he kills off the friends. They have this is where the leprechaun is able to mind control people, and the way that you can tell they're being mind controlled is their eyes glow green, I guess. But he's able to control these women who Ice-T is looking for the boys who stole his flute, and he also is looking for he's got the medallion, I guess. I don't know. He's got the medallion. The medallion is the only thing that can kill and stop the leprechaun. So he's not worried about the leprechaun. He's worried about getting his flute back. But the leprechaun takes over the minds of like 3 waitresses from Ice-T's club, and they become his zombie hoes, he calls them. And the zombie hoes are easily swayed by other women. I don't know, because Positive P dresses in drag so he can somehow find out where the leprechaun lives, so that he can kill the leprechaun, but he needs to be in drag to convince the zombie hoes to trust him. And then when they tell him where the leprechaun is, the spell is broken and they're not zombie hoes anymore. But then they come to life and they go, oh my God, a man in drag. And they're so upset by it. It's like, no, it's okay. It's okay. Don't worry about it. They're like, yeah, it's so weird. But they're not
really out of their way to make gender identity a part of the movie.
It was weird. It was very, very weird. And so so the whole climax of the movie is Positive P in drag. He's not wearing the wig anymore, but he's fully in drag. Ice-T shows up, and he shoots Ice-T a bunch of times. And then Ice-T is not dead. So there's a weird like little 3-way battle between Ice-T and the leprechaun and Positive P and drag. Oh, by the way, Stray Bullet was the name of the other guy. He got Stray Bullet was the name of the second guy who really wants to do gangster rap, but he's also friends with Positive P. Anyway, Stray Bullet shoots himself in the head because the leprechaun made him. Like, he's pointing the gun at the leprechaun, and then the leprechaun like makes him point the gun at his own head and pull the trigger in front of his best friends. It's like, that's the most psychotic thing that the leprechaun, I think, does in any of the movies. So that's it. But also, what's his name? Butch, not our Butch, not Pete Dunne, a different guy, Butch. But this is where we find out that 4-leaf clovers can also kill a leprechaun in this movie. Okay, so how do they do that? They like dice up some 4-leaf clover and put it in the marijuana, and they get they find a way to smuggle marijuana into the leprechaun. That's why they're in drag, because the leprechaun likes all these hot girls, and so they're in drag so that they'll give him marijuana. He'll smoke the marijuana, which then he will intake the trussed up clovers, and that will make him vulnerable to things, so you can kill him. Right? Okay, great. Remember that, because it doesn't come into play at all later. So anyway, Butch is killed in the crossfire between Positive P and Ice-T. And so he's killed in the crossfire like that. Hey, Positive P, make sure they don't bury me in this dress. And then so it comes out and everything else. There's a fight. There's the thing, and then the medallion flies up in the air and comes down and lands, and you hear the leprechaun go, ah! And the next scene, it's Positive P, but he's dressed in a nice suit. He's got sunglasses, and he's rapping about killing mother effers, and in a club. And then he turns around and he takes off his sunglasses, and his eyes glow green. And he puts the sunglasses back on, and it cuts to the front of the room. People are sitting in the chairs, and the front row is the leprechaun. And he goes, "I taught him everything he knows."
Dun, dun,
End of the movie. So it's the one movie where Leprechaun comes out fine. You would ask yourself, oh, because he came out fine, does this have any bearing at all on Leprechaun 2 Back to the Hood? No, not at all.
Leprechaun 6 Back to the Hood.
Leprechaun 6 Back to the Hood. It doesn't at all.
Okay.
There are just four relatively good kids in the hood trying to make their way and get out. And honestly, there is way more character development for these 4 kids in the hood than there is in any movie going on ever. 20 minutes of them actually, their wants, their desires, their backstories, how they had a falling out between them a few months ago. All that stuff is covered in 20 minutes. And when I said to you, I think the 6th one might actually be the best one. It's not. It's not at all the best one. It's not good at all. But this character development was nice. And this is where you find out that the gold itself can hurt the alien, the leprechaun. He wants it, but also it can hurt him. I don't understand how that works. There's a woman who's like a soothsayer, like a fortune teller that tells is actually a witch and has like a magic battle with the leprechaun later in the film. But she tells us why the leprechaun exists. Like thousands of years ago, the king brought these women, these spirits from the underworld to help him win a battle. And when the king died, they all went back home to the netherworld, except for one who decided to stay and become all powerful. So that's why there's only one leprechaun in all these movies. Not because they're all connected, but because there's only one leprechaun, I guess. I don't know. This leprechaun dies because it falls off a roof at the end. Oh, they chop up some 4-leaf clovers.
Mm-hmm.
That one of the guys finds is a bad baggie of weed that he bought. So it's just a bunch of like oregano.
It's the same device essentially. But
no, like the other one, they intentionally put clover in weed and make the leprechaun smoke it. In this one,
was an accident.
This guy bought a bad baggie of weed and everyone was clowning him for it, and happened to be in the bad baggie of weed a 4-leaf clover. So hey, good. So happens they chop it up and they put it in the hollow point bullets that are inside the gun. And so they shoot him with 4-leaf clover bullets, which don't really work. Like if you shoot him enough times, it'll kill him. But if you shoot him like 4 times and not 6, he'll just like shrug it off, which is odd. But anyway, they finally shoot him enough time with the clovers that it falls off the roof and falls with all of his gold into wet cement. And the wet cement, of course, is in the middle of a construction site that has been famously abandoned for 5 years. No one has done any construction on this site, and yet there's still wet cement within it. I don't understand. Like, that's the biggest confounding thing of all the movies, is like how there could be wet cement in a plot line driven. No construction has happened at this construction shot for 5 years. I don't understand it, but whatever. Also, of the 4 people who were in the movie, the 4 main characters, the only one that gets killed is the best of all of them. Like the most kind and pure, the most kind and pure-hearted. She didn't want to have to do any of this stuff. She was like, no, I don't want to use the gold. I don't want to do anything with the gold. I don't want the gold at all. But she's the one that gets killed.
Of course.
Whatever. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. And so you can tell why they stopped doing it in 2003. $20 years ago, and there have been a couple of reboots starring Hornswoggle, which I will not watch. Do not ask me.
No. Wait, so he just falls off the roof and that's the end? Like with the clover?
He falls off the roof, and yes, he falls up being shot by the clover. Earlier, he's locked inside the building's incinerator and just boops himself out of it. Like, just boop. He's gone. He's out. He's locked inside there. Boop. He's gone. So, yeah, that's it.
So you watched 6 movies, and I'm going to guess you would get the flick in on only the 4th one.
I wouldn't even say keep it in. I would just say, like, of these movies, the one that might be the most enjoyable to watch strictly because of its bonkersness is the 4th one. Especially because, like, it's so odd to think of it as a Leprechaun movie when, like, they literally could have made the creature that he is be anything else. It could have been a Chupacabra movie. Like, honestly, like, there could have been Bigfoot, literally anything. Nobody in the movie recognizes him as being a leprechaun.
So you signed up voluntarily to waste 10 hours of your life this week?
Yeah. Get the fuck out of here.
On the whole franchise.
Yeah, on the whole franchise. The 4th one is the only one I would say would be like, maybe it's fun to watch when you're high or something.
Sure.
I don't know. Like,
My lonely little movie, I'm also going to get the flick out of here on.
Good. All right, good.
So
good,
7 films, all
7
featuring
films.
a leprechaun, all getting the flick out of here on Thanksgiving. I say Patrick's Day.
Get the flick out of here. 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 Right. Okay, good.
Nailed it.
All right. That's it. Tune in next time when we won't watch 7 movies total, and we will say, get the flick out of here to just one movie.
Probably. Yeah.
Probably. Maybe 2.